Welcome, everybody, to your Audi 2021 MLS Cup Playoffs post-game show. What a weekend of soccer it has been. I am David Goss. I am joined by Calen Carr, Charlie Davies, and Matt Doyle. We are going to celebrate all that we saw this weekend, and we will put a few teams to bed once again for the year. What a weekend it has been of soccer, though. From Glesnes's goal yesterday to an unbelievable performance over the course of the day from Blanco, and in Atlanta, we'll celebrate Montreal as well, winning a Canadian championship. It has been so much fun to watch. And let's start out in Portland. Charlie, what do you make of this performance from the Portland Timbers?
You know, I feel like Calen, Doyle, even yourself, it's almost one of those things where you say, I hate to say it, but we knew this, that Gio Savarese was going to have a tactical game plan, that they have Sebastian Blanco, who you give him space, he's going to let it fly, and typically it's going to find the back of the net. If Tyler Miller was there or not, he wasn't preventing any of these goals. Mabiala is a beast on set pieces. If things aren't going for them, that's one way to get back in the game is Mabiala. Yes, they go down a goal, but you talk about character. This team is made for the playoffs. I think what we saw from them today was resilience, sticking to their game plans, and then they were so good in transition. You saw that Minnesota at times had possession, got into attack, and then when they lost it, as soon as that ball turned over, there was no effort to get back. Zero. Especially on the Sebastian Blanco goal. He lets it fly. If you look behind him, both Emmanuel Reynoso and Franco Pane are just sitting there, just watching, saying, all right, go ahead. My guys will defend. I don't need to give any effort. It's just not good enough. For this Minnesota team, they're so talented. Yet, again, in the playoffs, they falter, and it comes down to mentality. It comes down to setup. This is a game, in my opinion, this is a game where you have to get on players who can cover ground, who can deal with Portland's transition game on the counterattack. Who didn't start, and who had to come in?
That'd be Hassani Dotson. Yeah.
They really could have used him. And you saw just in a brief moment when he got the nutmeg and played it across, those are the type of players you need in this match. So I think kudos to Portland. Well done. You got the job done, and you're on to the next round. It's kind of what we knew how you were going to play, and they played it to perfection. And for Minnesota, it's, yes, you got into the playoffs. Yes, you underperformed over the season, but maybe next year you step it up because this team is too good not to be, in a better position towards the end of the year.
Just watching these highlights back, it is shocking to see the amount of time and space that Sebastian Blanco has on that ball. And it almost looked as if it was a dead, like the play had been called dead, the way that Fragapane reacted and the way that Reynoso reacted, where he you can actually see him raise his hand to someone, oh, sorry, I didn't get you the ball. The ball is in play. And then on top of that, you look at the reaction. That's from the two players who were involved in the play. But then behind the ball, just no urgency to close down, just acres of space there. And you give a player of Sebastian Blanco that quality, that much time and space on the ball. You're right. It doesn't matter who's in goal. That is just a perfect strike. But from the sort of mentality of the team to some of the decisions as far as who's playing and who can cover that space, I agree. It was a failure on both ends.
You guys are just ready to throw some dirt on the Loons. Like, just get that out of the way at the start of the show. But let's keep giving Portland their due here, because it wasn't just Blanco, right? Because they gave up a great goal to Minnesota to start this game, and they were down 1-0. And this is a team, like, they hadn't won a playoff game since 2018. That's, in fact, the only time they've won a playoff game since 2015. So basically the entirety of the TAM era. And once they went down 1-0, it could have gotten ugly for Portland. We've seen it get ugly for Portland in the past. And this is where, obviously, we talked about it a ton yesterday, just having playoff reps, having playoff maturity is such a big thing. And I think that sort of showed through in this game. Like, obviously, Diego Chara has been there a million times and has performed at this level. He was great today. Mabiala was fantastic today, not just with the opening goal for Portland, but with just his entire the scope of his play. I mean, the man almost scored a bicycle kick.
Nearly.
And like, honestly, Jose Carlos Van Rankin has had, I think, a really poor year, and he was poor on the goal. But that was the only mistake he made today. I thought that Minnesota was going to be able to go directly at him and absolutely rip it up. And they weren't able to do that. And I think Portland deserves a lot of credit for that, because we have seen this team in the past, when they go down a goal, they kind of lose their damn minds. That wasn't on the table today. They ended up playing really, really well. I think the middle 30, 35 minutes, that might be the best I've seen Portland play all season. They looked like contenders. And when you have a number 10 like Sebastian Blanco, and you have the rest of the guys playing like that, I mean, you are contenders.
So Doyle said it wasn't just Sebastian Blanco, but it also was kind of just Sebastian Blanco.
Oh, no. Don't do that to my man Chara. Don't do that to my man Chara.
But, Calen, we've talked about this all season, waiting for him to come back and then watching him get healthy and the numbers he put up. I think 6 goals, 4 assists since he's been back in the regular season. Is this the Sebastian Blanco that carried them to an MLS Cup 3 years ago, an MLS Cup final, and does he look back to that level?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking pregame, and I think I said if you were to go across the list of players in Major League Soccer and you just said, hey, give me one game breaker that you want to take from any team and put him on your team for a do or die playoff game, and Sebastian Blanco, I said, might be top of my list. I don't think this is a year where we see the dominant number 9s. Rui Diaz, I think, is probably the closest to it, and then Tati Castellanos as well gets a goal today. And, Golden Boot winner, so you have to show respect. But I think it's the players a little bit underneath that we're seeing who are dominating the ball, whether it's Carlos Hill. I think Sebastian Blanco's a little bit somewhere it fits in between, where he's not obviously a 9, but he's not a sort of a true playmaker. He's a guy that can find the ball in those spots on top of the box and right around, as we saw today. And when he gets his opportunities, he's got that clutch gene. He just knows how to finish it. If you give him an inch, he's going to take it. But he also has that personality that I think Portland feeds off of. So it took him a little while to get healthy this year. But as he's gotten closer towards the end of the season, rounding into form, and then now today, you see it come out in a big way with 2 goals. But the personality part is big, because it's not often you see a player who is your goal scorer, your talisman, but also kind of sets the tone emotionally for the team. And that's a role that Sebastian Blanco has played for Portland in clutch games for a long time now.
I mean, we saw it. It reminds me of last summer at MLS's back tournament, right? Like, he was the MVP of that tournament by a mile. I mean, he was just the best player by so far over the course of that month. But then the other thing that Portland did really well last summer was set pieces, both defensively and attacking set pieces. And that was the same recipe that we saw today. Now, obviously, the lineup is a little bit different because Diego Valeri is no longer a starter. Jeremy Abobasi isn't around. It's Felipe Mora and Yaroslav Niezgoda. So there have been some changes. But the base of that recipe, which is Sebastian Blanco and set pieces, is still there. We know it works in tournament play, and it worked perfectly today.
And I would also add that Diego Chara, we know what his typical game is. We know what to expect from him. But one player that really stood out to me defensively is Dairon Asprilla. I mean, he had 11 possessions gained. He led the team, and he led the team with 6 interceptions. That's your left attacking wing. Now, he wasn't, I guess, as clean as you want in the final third, but what he did bring to the game is, yes, he was a beast defensively, and 2, you could see that he could hold the ball up. He could connect. That was a player that really, I think, allowed Portland to gain confidence in the attacking half. And at the end of the day, he stood out. He performed. He brought his A game, whereas you look at Minnesota, and who knew is your number 9, your star striker, kind of didn't do anything for me. Not the performance you need from your big playoff striker, right? I think Reynoso, he's gifted. We all know that, but you need a little bit more.
Charlie, before we let you fully eulogize,
I haven't done that.
I want to talk about something. I know you're not a fan of it. It's called goals. And I know you don't like talking about goals. But let's take a minute. We started yesterday, of course, the Jacob Glesnes Screamer, Graham Zusi, 11 goals in total so far in this opening weekend of the playoffs. Back for another year of playoff soccer is the Audi Goals Drive Progress Program. For every goal scored in the Audi MLS Cup playoffs, $2,000 will be contributed to the Audi Goals Drive Progress Fund, directly supporting MLS youth academies. Thanks to the 11 goals scored so far, we're off to a great start of $22,000 donated. And throughout the playoffs, you can also catch the Driving Force series on Instagram to stay up to date on all the big storylines. Head over to BR Football's IG stories, Driving Force, to vote for your favorite club, learn more about goals drive progress, and hear some Audi MLS Cup playoffs bracket challenge predictions at MLS. So that's our story so far. 11 goals, a ton of stunners. Sebastian Blanco's now trying to break in against Glesnes and Graham Zusi yesterday for best goals so far. And now, to take the floor, the Undertaker, to start us all off, Matt Doyle, start the bow on what was this season for Minnesota United.
It was ultimately a disappointing season. They started slow, and they got, through the course of the season, they did get better, and they got themselves some wins, and they got over the line and into the playoffs. But I think the expectations were for more from Minnesota United. Emmanuel Reynoso is an MVP caliber player. They have Robin Lodbeck. They were able to add Franco Fragapane. And then they went out and they got Adrien Huneau. And those four guys were supposed to lead this team to another level, and they never quite managed it. At no point in 2021 were they greater than the sum of their parts. And at the same time, they seem to lose some of their depth as well. The young players aren't developing or aren't being put into positions to develop like they maybe have been in the past. So this feels like a real opportunity missed for this Minnesota United team. And if you look at the age of some of their key guys, Michael Boxall, obviously Ozzie Alonso as well, it's hard to assume that they're going to come back and be a stronger team next year. It feels like maybe the window is shutting a little bit. So there's got to be some urgency this offseason, and there's got to be more cohesive play from front to back in 2022.
I guess I have to second Matt Doyle and say it's just not good enough for this Minnesota team. As good as you look at it on paper, the roster, they have some real talent especially across the starting 11. Just a team that can hurt you in so many different ways. One player you talked about, youth, Hassani Dotson. The sky is the limit for this kid. I've been saying it since Adrian Heath started playing him. And I said, you have to continue to develop him. Give him the reps he needs, the chances. We haven't seen that. There's too many ups and downs. In the under 23 Olympic qualifying, you got a taste to see man, this kid can play. You just got to use him the right way, and you got to give him confidence and push him in the right way. Not playing him is not going to get him there. This is one of those real. I think when you look at him, he's got I think a good first touch. He has a good idea of the game. He can dribble. He can take shots from distance, and he's a tough tackler. What I love about him is he plays with a chip on his shoulder. If I'm any executive in MLS, I'm working on a way to get him. Trade for this kid. There's some kids who I watch and I know this kid's a winner. He's going to succeed. He just needs to be in the right situation. Tajon Buchanan was one of them, and he just needed a new coach. A new coach brought that out of him, and we've seen where he is now. One of the brightest stars in North America, on his way after this playoff season to a Champions League club. Hassani Dotson can be that good. He can be very good. So I think for me, he needs to get in the right situation, or next year they start to play him.
Well, bear with me for this one. The Portland Timbers will trade the Loons for turkeys because they are coming up on Thanksgiving Day.
Did Weeby write that for? Did Weeby write that for you? Because that's Weeby right there.
That was a Mark McClure. That was a Mark McClure
to my partner in soccer, Andrew Weeby. That's coming up, of course, 4:30 p.m. on Fox. On Thursday, we'll preview that game. We'll talk Canadian Championship. And, of course, all the other MLS games coming up on Extra Time tomorrow on MLSsoccer.com and wherever you get your podcasts. We talked Western Conference. The day started in the East, though. NYCFC hosting Atlanta United for the opportunity to face off against the points record team in the New England Revolution in the next round. And it was an NYCFC 2-0 win at home. Charlie, I want to start with you. We all thought we knew how this game would go. Mm-hmm. It went the opposite, and yet it was still a dominant performance from NYCFC. What did you see in this game?
I don't think it went the opposite. I thought this is what we were expecting. New York City FC. I think what we thought at the beginning of Atlanta saying they want to possess the ball, we thought you're out of your mind if you think you're going to do that at Yankee Stadium. And they were. And it was New York City FC who got Maxi Morales on the ball, and he looked kind of like a younger Maxi Morales. Like he turned the clock back. He was getting on the ball. He was getting all over the attacking third, popping up in the good spots. And it comes down to Tati Castellanos. The guy has scored in 4 straight games, now 5. 6 goals in 4 games, now 7 in 5. So what you love about him is his movement. He doesn't have to get involved all the time, but it's his movement. And when he does get on the ball, usually something happens. And for this New York City FC, I think Admonson at left back stepped up. I thought he was really solid tonight. He got on the ball. He made timely challenges. And then when he was in possession, he didn't panic when he was under pressure. He usually found the next guy. He made a smart decision when he was building out of the back. And Collins was good with Chanot. That partnership, we've seen it be successful year in and year out. But in the playoffs, typically this team would falter. Not today. I liked what I saw from New York City FC. Really a step in the right direction. And I'll give a lot of credit to Ronny Deila, because there were a lot of times where people were thinking maybe this isn't the right guy for this team, because there was too many up and down performances, not very consistent. Tonight, it looks like he got his system down. He's got the right players for that system, and they looked much better than Atlanta.
They did, and they looked really comfortable without the ball, which is, I think, that's the part that we weren't expecting, right? Atlanta had almost 60% possession, and that was Gonzalo Pineda's game plan. They weren't able to turn it into dangerous chances. And to see NYCFC be comfortable with that is something kind of new and different. The other new and different thing about this is NYCFC in the playoffs actually victimizing a team on set pieces instead of being the victims on set pieces. For as good as NYCFC were going forward at times in this game, they weren't able to score from open play, but twice on restarts, they just undressed Atlanta United, who did not look prepared for it. NYCFC needed one big save from Sean Johnson. He has struggled with that this year. He has not been up to his usual standards this year, but he was in this game. He had that save, I think it was midway through the second half on Joseph Martinez to preserve make the scoreline stand, preserve that 0. So it was a good game from him, a good way to start the playoffs from NYCFC, and we don't get to say that very often.
It was a historic night for NYCFC. Sean John, the big save, but the Golden Boot winner, he was the man today, and he spoke with our Jillian Sakovits after the game at Yankee Stadium for our AT&T 5G call to the field.
Hola, Tati. Felicidades. What type of week has that been for you? The Golden Boot, your mother surprising you, and the goal here to win a playoff game.
Muy feliz porque era una semana muy linda para mí. Lo disfruté mucho porque está mi mamá acá, está mi hermano, está mi familia que me está apoyando de Argentina. Y le quería regalar esto a ellos que son muy importantes para mí.
It was a very unique week, very happy for having my mom, my brother, I have family supporting me from Argentina, so I'm very, very happy.
¿En quién está aquí?
Es el hijo de Efraín,
What did New York City show here today?
¿Qué demostró New York City FC hoy en la cancha?
Sí, mucho carácter. Creo que estos partidos se juegan así. La verdad que nada, se vio reflejado en lo que hicimos en la semana, lo que venimos trabajando. Sabíamos que Atlanta era un rival muy difícil. Bueno, por suerte lo pudimos liquidar.
What we did was shown on the field. We knew Atlanta was a very tough opponent to beat, and we demonstrated that we did our job.
Okay. Last question. When do you start to think about Carlos Seal and the New England Revolution?
Was that again?
When do you start to think about them?
¿Cuándo vas a empezar a pensar en Carlos Gil y el New England Revolution?
Bueno, ahora ya a partir de mañana sabemos que es un jugador importante, pero nada, no tenemos que pensar solamente en un jugador, tenemos que pensar en el rival y nosotros también lo tenemos lo nuestro, así que vamos a ir a buscar los puntos.
Starting tomorrow, we'll think of him, but not only him, the rest of the Revolution. But they're a tough opponent, but we're also tough, and we'll do a good match.
Gracias, Tati.
Thank you.
Bueno, hacemos en español.
Gracias.
So there you hear
he's a
from the
baller.
man himself. Mucho carácter. A lot of character for this team in this game. Calen, we've asked basically for a year and a half now, can Tati be a player who carries this NYCFC team through a playoff run in big moments? How do you feel about it right now? Charlie.
Take the ball cleanly and just sort of smack it into the back post. This one was one where a confident striker sometimes is a lucky striker, and where you hit it down and you get that lucky bounce. And he did it well. Credit to him, and also credit to Ronny Deila, because I feel like what he found today too in a manager, you can find these little margins, right, in playoffs, and especially on a small pitch like this, set pieces. We sort of hinted at it, and Doyle brought it up, but it's so true that Atlanta had left that near post completely open, and they had nobody to even stop a simple pass on the ground, and they were able to play it back both times and then target the back post. And Tati Castellanos, in form, out of form, the golden boot leader, leaving him on the edge of the 6 on the back post. You cannot leave him that wide open. Miles Robinson left him there, and then the other one, Barco, actually just leaves Maxi Morales and just completely abandons him, begins to cheat looking ahead. And he steps forward and says, okay, just a little square ball, comes back to him, lays it, hits it off the crossbar, and then Cayens comes in and puts it in. So set pieces really did in Atlanta United today. It was a good wrinkle there from Deila to recognize where the soft spot was into that near post, which would open things up from there. But Castellanos is definitely in form right now. And if you're New England, those center backs are going to have to watch out for him, because a dangerous in-form Castellanos can do damage. And I think with that rhythm as well from NYCFC, they've been good. And the other thing I would mention, just because I have to, disagree with Doyle on some goalkeeper controversy on each one. John Johnson, I feel like had a fantastic match tonight, and he's made some really big saves. I think this year he hasn't had to make as many of those spectacular saves, but I think he's a model of consistency, a guy that you can always depend on. And now he's finding his form as well towards the end of the season. I thought he was really big today as well.
That's it. Get Calen off the show. Cut his feet.
Cut him out.
I think it also helps that Sean Johnson is in national team camp with both Matt Turner and Zach Steffen. So you have to up your game naturally. So I think what we are seeing from him is a keeper that's always been consistent and confident, but he's getting into form, like you said, Calen and Doyle. When you make those big time saves, you give your team a chance. Now, what I will say against this about this New York City FC team, when they did beat New England 2-0 at Yankee Stadium, Tati Castellanos faced Matt Turner, he faced Andrew Farrell, and he faced Henry Kessler in a brace. However, Carlos Gil and Gustavo Bo were not on the field. And then when they played at Gillette and New England won 2-1, Carlos Gil and Gustavo Bo were not on the field. So you have to look at, I think from New York City FC, it's, hey, we've beaten them once, yes, on our home turf, but we've also had the better of them, and it took a red card for New England to kind of get things going for them, but we scored to open the match at Gillette. We're confident. We're going into this with a rhythm, with an idea. However, New England, coming off 3 weeks of not playing, there's going to be some rust. Now, what you hope for, if you're New England, is it takes you 15, 20 minutes to get back into it, and by that time, New York City doesn't score a goal or two, because then this game is going to look drastically different. But Carlos Gil on the pitch, there's a massive difference how this Revolution side plays with Carlos Gil and without.
Does anyone think Charlie's pumped about the Revs NYCFC game? Or is he not thinking
like I could rip my hair out. I'm so hyped. Oh my God.
Before we get there, though, we've talked about it a couple times already in this segment. Doyle, set pieces being a huge factor for NYCFC, being the reason they really won this game.
Yeah, they were. And look, they've been, I think, better on set pieces under Ronny Deila than they were under Dome Torrent or Patrick Vieira. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. Today, this was more a case of Atlanta United not being very good defensively on restarts. They just, we went through it. That's the Golden Boot winner, wide open at the back of the net. And obviously a clinical textbook finish from Tati Castellanos right there. If you're defending on restarts like that, you're not going to win in the playoffs. And, NYCFC have learned that to their detriment repeatedly over the years. And for their fans, it has to feel pretty good, I'm sure, to see someone else be on the wrong end of a performance like this. The same time, there is a hint of worry for NYCFC that they didn't really create much from open play. They've been so good with the ball all year long. And they had moments in this one where they looked really good with the ball, but the final touch wasn't there. And a lot of that, I think, comes from the lack of Anton Tinnerholm. He did his his Achilles a couple months ago, and they have been, trying to replace him with Tavon Gray, trying to replace him at times with James Sands, but now James Sands is needed at D-mid because Keaton Parks is out. And there isn't really a great answer. I thought Tavon Gray he had great energy going end line to end line. He's a very good defensive player. He actually made the right runs and chose the right passes. He just could not get the weight right in this game. If you go back and you watch his all touches compilation, he repeatedly was trying to play Maxi Morales in and just played it over the end line. And that's a pass that Anton Tinnerholm completes. And that's a pass that opens so much stuff up for NYCFC. If they're not able to do that against the Revs, I mean, it's hard to see a path it's hard to see a path for NYCFC at Foxborough if they don't play better than they did today. I thought it was a really good defensive effort. I thought attacking wise, they left some goals on the table, and you cannot do that against the Revs in Foxborough.
Well, that's looking forward. Looking back on this game, though, let's go down to Ronny Deila, who spoke with our Jillian Sakovits at Yankee Stadium for our AT&T 5G call to the field.
Coach, you get your first playoff win as the manager of New York City FC. What did the team show here today?
Togetherness, courage, intensity, winning mentality. First half was very even. I think we lose the ball too much in going too straight forward. We have to switch the play more. Second half we really did that, and we opened them up. And we defended fantastic the whole game. And we also have a goalkeeper that saves what's coming, then we have a good chance to win.
To get those 2 goals as quickly as you did in the second half, what did you say at halftime?
We knew that so many times we played here that it's been even the first half, and then they destroyed the teams in the second half. And I reminded them of that, and also that we have to move the ball quicker and from side to side, so we can get overload, get more people inside the box, and that worked really good in the second half.
Tati Castellanos has had a heck of a week, getting presented with the Golden Boot, his mom surprising him, and then getting that opening goal. What has he shown you this season?
What kind of culture we want to have, He has an unbelievable desire to win and to get better. He has the ability to get better, to learn, and is very humble. And talent. You come far with these 3 things.
And lastly, when do you start thinking about Bruce Arena and the New England Revolution?
We wait to Monday, tomorrow. Today we're going to enjoy this night. And I also have to thank the fans. It was unbelievable atmosphere today, so really, really good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A glorious night, a historic night for Ronny Deila. Great work from Jill out at Yankee Stadium. Of course, we'll have people at every game going forward, and you always have your 2021 Audi MLS Cup playoff post-game show after every single playoff day. We've got another day coming up on Tuesday. Before we get to preview, though, let's bring out the eulogizer. Let's get the roses out. I'll start playing the violin. Doyle, get us started. What was 2021 for Atlanta, and where do they stand?
It was a mess, but I think they ended up coming out of it in a better spot. Obviously the Gabriel Heinze thing didn't work. Rob Valentino deserves a ton of credit for turning the team around at midseason. And then I think it was much more good than bad under Gonzalo Pineda, who has the makings of a very good coach in MLS. All of this happening with Ezequiel Barco in likely his last year, with the defense under sort of constant renovation, and with Joseph Martinez still not being 100%, still making it to the playoffs, still putting in a pretty decent performance, at least defensively in this game. There's a lot to build upon. And the thing is, that with Arthur Blank owning the team, there's always going to be reinforcements. So there will be help coming this offseason. But one thing that they have to get better at, I think, is identifying and integrating guys who have MLS experience. They're missing the Michael Parkhurst and Jeff Larenowitzes of the world. They've talked about it. Carlos Bocanegra's talked about it. I think Brad Guzan has talked about it. Joseph Martinez has talked about it in the past couple of years. So they need to rebuild that a little bit, in addition to continuing to go out and be aggressive and be groundbreaking with the types of international transfers that they make. If they do that, then I don't really doubt that we will see Atlanta back in the playoffs next year, and we'll probably see them longer than just for 90 minutes.
And just to add to that, I would say you have to love how Atlanta showed resilience and character to come out of that deep hole they were in. Rob Valentino deserves a ton of credit, like Doyle said. So much to get this team pointed in the right direction. And they had to make sure that this next hire was the right hire. And Gonzalo Pineda, I think, was the perfect hire for this team, for the community, for the all the Spanish-speaking players that they have. This is going in the right direction. And you have Joseph Martinez. He's not fit. He needs another, 3-4 months to get back to where he was. So I think this comes at a perfect opportunity for them to have a nice little break. And then coming into next year, you have a fully fit Joseph, one that is match fit as well. And then you look to build on the principles that you developed this year. There's a lot of great pieces. Now it's when you lose a player, like maybe it's a Barco, maybe it's a couple of other players, and then you're bringing in the right players to complement Joseph Martinez, to complement the team. Because if you get that man service, he will finish.
Calen, any final Atlanta thoughts on the year?
Yeah, just the balance was off. The balance, and that happens. That's a symptom of when you change managers multiple times over the course of 2 seasons, because each manager is going to come in and bring in different players and have their own different ideas of who fits into the system and who does not. So Pineda comes in. He doesn't have to look far into his past to see how that balance can be right. Those players that are veteran players don't necessarily have to be MLS players. They could be players like we've seen Gustav Svensson come in the past, World Cup experience, players that have experience abroad. But the balance was just wrong for this team that at times looked a little bit individual or waiting for moments of magic from individual players. Araujo, a great player, but sometimes, just needs more time to acclimate. Barco, I think, if they do move on from him, will be sort of a weight off in a way, as far as just being able to, he changes the way the whole team has to play, and then ultimately finding complementary pieces that go first and foremost around Joseph. Joseph is the star of this team. In the past, we've seen players come in with the formula for do they fit is do they fit for Joseph? Because that's the way this team is going to be. And I think a year with a full off season and a full preseason, we'll see a better Joseph than we saw this year, which will be big for them.
Maybe call up Newcastle United, see if Miguel Almirón wants to come home.
That wouldn't be bad.
Anything can happen. You never know. It could be fun, and it will be fun over the course of next season. But we still got one more match day left of this first round of the 2021 Audi MLS Cup playoffs. Your home is FS and Fox Deportes on Tuesday night, a doubleheader. We start in the Eastern Conference with Nashville hosting Orlando City, and then we go out west for Seattle hosting RSL. We're going to preview this here. I've got a little bit of a dare for all of you. It might be harder for some of you than others. We're going to preview these games, and you're not allowed to mention the name Carlos Heel. See if you can do it. I'm not sure if all of you can do it. Let's start with Charlie and go to Nashville hosting Orlando City. What are you looking out for in this matchup?
Well, I'm looking for Hani Mukhtar to be the centerpiece for this Nashville attack, because defensively they're among the best in Major League Soccer. They have a good base, and Walker Zimmerman is as dominant as anyone on set pieces, both the attacking and defensively. But in the transition game, it's Hani Mukhtar who gets just in behind the midfield, finds those gaps, and then it's him drawing center backs out of position or outside backs, and then finding the next guy. Hani Mukhtar can score and create. He's going to be the key for Nashville. And then on the flip side, Orlando City, you talk about Daryl Dike being the fulcrum. It's not all just about goals. It's the hold-up play, linking Nani into the attack, Mauricio Pereira. If he can do that, then now all of a sudden this Orlando City team has something going in this playoffs. If you have a hot striker and then a Nani who's motivated and in form.
Well, I love that. Zimmerman versus DK. That's a lot of energy to up it a little.
A lot.
I'll be there.
You'll be there.
Big
Oh,
star power energy.
Let's go.
And I'll send you guys some interviews or something for the show, because, of course, this show will be on right after those games. Let's move out west. Calen, Damir Karlak, he's a hero. He's a legend. RSL now travels to Seattle. Do they have a shot at this and maybe continuing along the Cinderella route?
Well, they're not even supposed to be here, right? And that was the magic of Decision Day, was that sort of Damir Kreilach 90th minute winner to send them into the playoffs. And this was a team that had been counted out and left for dead at so many points throughout the season. even by their own manager, who, guess what, is on the other side now as an assistant for Seattle Sounders. So, look at this team, and you're going to have to question a little bit. Nobody needed this break more than Seattle did, as far as just getting some of their health and seeing who's going to be available tomorrow. We don't know the status of Lodeiro. He will play some part, most likely. We don't know how much. Same with Jordan Morris. Nuhu is out due to health and safety protocols, it seems like. So there are some question marks, and then we see what's the status of Rui Diaz, although I would expect him to be back into the team. So there's a lot going against Real Salt Lake. I think also the manager just knowing, the assistant Freddie Juarez knowing his team so well. But then again, that's where Real Salt Lake does its work. That's where they have been living for a long time. And Pablo Mastroeni has gotten these guys. If they go too open, though, I think they're going to get hurt. And that's the tendency that Real Salt Lake has had struggled with towards the back half of the year. When they've been solid and waited for their chances, as they did on the last day of the season, that's the pathway for success on the road against Seattle Sounders.
Let's take a look again at the games coming up this week. Tuesday night, as I said, doubleheader, Nashville hosting Orlando on FS1 and Fox Deportes, and then that Seattle RSL game. And then a little bit of history coming up on Thursday. It's Thanksgiving, and the Colorado Rapids on Fox, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, will be hosting the Portland Timbers. The first time ever an MLS Cup playoff game will be on Thanksgiving. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, the Rapids beat Portland at home 2-0. Right before that, it was 2-2 with a red card in the 42nd minute. So this one's going to be juicy. This one's going to be fun, just as our turkey sandwiches will be first turkey thing of the year, blah, 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 blah. Thank you to my partners in soccer here for joining me tonight, to Charlie Davies, Calen Carr, Matt Doyle. Thank you. Thanks to all of you out there for watching, for everyone who's been out at games so far this weekend. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed. Anyone going on Tuesday. If you want your preview, check out Extra Time Radio. Coming up on Monday, we'll preview the Tuesday games, review the weekend. We'll talk that Thursday game as well. And, of course, Montreal winning a trophy, the Canadian champions, and now a spot in the CCL for 2021. But for tonight, that's all we've got. So thanks, and have a good one.